Hey guys, it's Melissa here from melissaoatman.com. Welcome to another episode of Awaken Your Inner Awesomeness, the weekly podcast devoted to all things spirituality and self-improvement. I am so excited you're here with me today because today we have the self-esteem doctor, Dr. Simone Alicia back. She is here with us. You might have remembered had been a guest a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago. I don't even know. The summer is flying by so fast. And she was here to talk to us about self-esteem. But we had such a fun conversation that I asked her to come back and join us again today. And today we're going to be talking about how to raise your vibration, which is super important when you want to manifest your dream life. But also, if you're just having a bad day, what are some ways that you can quickly get out of that funky mood? So thank you so much for being here with us today, Dr. Simone. I'm so excited to have you back.
I'm back. I am so thankful. I really agree with you. The conversation we had flowed so wonderfully that when you invited me back, it was like, yes, I want to talk to Melissa again. This is so good. And everyone listening, thank you for tuning in. I am so excited to bring more of this to you with Melissa. This is amazing. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Our conversation was so great. And I thought, I know a lot of people who feel just kind of stuck in life right now. We're going through massive, huge shifts all around us. And I know for me personally, I'm going through huge shifts in my own career and, moving from one thing to another. And it can be a very confusing kind of time. But when we're hoping to manifest certain things in our lives, one of the keys to that is that our vibration, if we're all energy and we're all, operating on this energetic frequency, it needs to be at a higher level instead of down here in this low vibration. Plus, the low vibrational energies are when we're experiencing things like anger and fear and resentment and all of those kinds of things. And that's not a fun place to be anyway. So how can we kind of raise our vibration? What are some ways that we can do that? That's what I would love for us to kind of tackle today.
I absolutely love this. And I want to actually just say thank you again for recognizing that this is a piece of the conversation, right? When I say I'm the self-esteem doctor, people think of, okay, so self-esteem, are you pretty? Are you ugly? Are you smart? Are you not? Like those typical things we may have talked about last time. But it really is a much deeper topic that goes into, how much do I deserve out of life? And how do I align to those things in life? And how do I value myself? And what habits and rituals do I establish for myself? Do I feel worthy of establishing for myself? So I not only have the good days or the better days, but I also am able to manifest the life I desire. It is so interconnected. And there is such a deep wisdom in you and everyone listening to be able to see that this is a topic that fits in here with what we would call self-esteem or self-worth. And I would definitely start to talk about, since we're talking about the self, think of yourself almost like a radio. And I've heard this example and I kind of bring it into my own way here. And I think of yourself as a radio and saying, well, what is it that I want to play? Like, what do I want to, what's the music I want playing in my life? Well, in order for you to emit that music, right, and experience that music, you have to tune your tuner to that quote unquote station. So I love to do these visual, these very tangible examples because it takes the abstract out of it and lets you really see, wait a second. If I'm a radio and I've got to tune, if I want to hear country music, I've got to tune to the country music station, right? And so when we want positivity, when we want success, when we want manifestations, love, money, whatever it is, we have to tune to that station first. And the problem is many of us want to see the money coming in and then tune to the station. It's like, wait a second, you want to hear, you want to hear hip hop and then turn to the hip hop station? How is that going to work, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, that country music station is not going to be playing any kind of Jay-Z or anything.
thank
Nothing
you.
like that.
Not at all. You are on the wrong station. So a lot of the times that's where the positivity and the power of self comes in, is recognizing that you as this, almost like this instrument that navigates vibration, right? Like the radio will navigate to those frequencies. You've got to know how to turn your tuner to the station you say you want to hear. So if you want, to manifest success in your life, but you're constantly on the station of, failure, poverty, lack, then you're not going to hear, quote unquote, that success music playing in your ears, honey. It's just not going to happen. So that is one of the examples, and I'm sure I will have many more visuals for those of you who need different types of examples. But that's just one of the most profound ways I think we can go into this idea, understanding what our role is. It's like, I want to be blessed by the universe. I want to manifest. I'm a good person. I'm doing the right things. I deserve it. I want it. I need it. And then we start to get almost desperate about how much it needs to be proven to us by the universe that we deserve something, but we have not set the tuner. And I want to take this just a step further. Right now, none of us are listening to a particular like musical station at the moment, but all of those frequencies are there. They are there for us to tune into. They're there. Country music is playing right now. There's a frequency of country music. There's a frequency of opera. There's a frequency of classical. There's a frequency of hip hop, Latina, all that. There's a frequency of reggae. All of it is out there right now. I'm just not able to hear it right now because I'm not tuned to it. Melissa's talking to me. She's not tuned to it. She's not hearing it. But the minute we decide, I want to hear reggae music right now, it is up to me to tune to the station so I can now pick up the frequency that already exists. This is how it works. I'm not trying to create reggae music and create this new thing and then make something called, out of nowhere. It's out there for me. I'm just trying to tune to it. I hope you guys are, oh man, I'm feeling this in my soul right
No, I think that is such a good point because I think that we're so conditioned to seeing is believing, right? If we don't see it, it doesn't exist. And I understand that. But a lot of this is about trusting and knowing that those things we know it exists because we see people with yachts and money and all, but so it exists. We know that it does.
Yes.
But we're not seeing it in our own reality right now. So the problem is we're not thinking that it can exist for us.
Correct.
And I love your example of the radio station because it's true. It's happening. It's out there. The universe is abundant. The abundance is there, but we're just not tuned into that frequency.
100%. And then we get mad when people are tuned in. It's kind of like if I'm driving by and I'm listening to like classical and I'm falling asleep and I don't want to hear that. And then I hear someone driving by listening to like, I don't know, Beyonce or some kind of like really upbeat. And I'm like, hey, I want that song playing in my radio, right? And then we get mad, like, well, that's just how those people are. And like, we're like cursing at them and we're mad, but it's like, wait a second, don't tune out, tune in, and then change your own station so that you too can pull in that vibe and connect with it because it's not something we have to make from scratch. I know we say the word create and I'm very okay and comfortable with the word create, but we're not really making it. We're connecting to it because it already exists. And I think that's where we open the door into. So then how exactly do we connect to something that we can't see? Because as you said, Melissa, we've been conditioned that seeing is believing, but we truly know now with more quantum physics and more work in the frequency world that it is believing is seeing.
Yeah.
And believing now takes us into the place of feeling. And I think that right there, if you want to write down what the magic word is of the day, it's going to be feeling. Like, yes. Spoiler alert, feeling. Write that down. That's the difference between.
And I just had, a couple of weeks ago on my podcast, I had Summer McStravick on, and she talked about how we've been conditioned to suppress those feelings. We have been, and I know this was definitely for me personally, in relationships, I got told, stop crying, or basically I was made to feel like I was using my emotions to manipulate someone when I wasn't. I was just expressing what naturally came to me. And as a child, I often got told, like, stop crying, or I'll give you something to cry about. Okay. So for many of us, expressing those emotions and feeling those feelings is not comfortable. We don't want to do it. We want to push everything down, but you have to feel things in order for this to actually work. Is that not right?
100%. I heard something awesome also to kind of connect with what you just said. I heard something awesome. I believe it was Deepak Chopra in an older video that I saw, and he was saying the problem is not necessarily okay. So, for example, we've kind of demonized negative emotion, right? And I think that the problem is we keep trying to go far this way or far that way, and like this is the final answer. They're not final answers. This is a very robust universe. There's a zillion ways to get to everything, and there are gray areas and there are wiggles, and whatever. It's not always a straight line. And what I'm understanding from so much studying, including what Chopra said, was that it's not that negative emotion is bad or that we shouldn't experience it or express it. It's that we should learn to get comfortable expressing it in the moment that it's happening. Something bad happens now. I should be very comfortable being in that space now, releasing it now. If I need to cry now, if I need to scream now, if I need to feel flooded with anger now, go for it, because now is the moment. The problem happens when either A, we don't express it now, and then we're suppressing it and dragging it into forever, and or we do express it, but then we keep on expressing it and we hold on to it. So holding on to it is ultimately, according to what Chopra is saying, the deeper problem. It's not expressing it in the moment. But as you said, growing up, many of us were told, stop expressing it. So like, we didn't know what the caveat was. Like, do I have 5 minutes, or can I not do this at all? Should I do it later? Like, I don't know what to do with this emotion.
Right.
But more research is showing us that it's fine to feel it now. I'm upset now. I'm angry now. I'm going to express that now. The problem is when we start to like set up camp there, we're building a house there, we're moving in, and we're like, well, I was mad 7 years ago and I'm going to hold on to,
say it now. Yeah. Taking out a mortgage on that, right?
Yeah, right? Like, I'm going to make this an Airbnb. We're just all going to live here together. Like, it's not, that's when it's no longer advantageous, because you're not just expressing and releasing anymore. Now you've switched into holding and retaining. Now we're starting to affect the overall vibrational countenance of you, your body, and your being. So let's just be really clear on that yes, negative emotion obviously has a low vibration, and that is not where we want to live. That's not where we want to move in. That's not where we want to be like, this is my new life. However, in the moments that something happens, feel free to express it. Do it with the intention that I am releasing this from my body. I'm releasing this. I am letting myself have this and feel this so that I can return to my higher natural state of higher vibration, because we should be eager to get back to those places. But we've been kind of trained to either suppress, hold on, drag it through time. You know, how can you heal from that? That was so bad. Well, I need to heal from that in order to move forward. So that's a really, really good point you made. And I think that's something that we really need to just take into account as we talk about manifestation and high vibration, and the intention with which I'm getting out of this negative emotion, because there's more out there for me. And I don't want to hear this station anymore. This is static, this station. It's just like, shh, I don't want to hear this. And us feeling free to pursue another vibration, for sure, a higher vibration.
Yeah. And I want to point out that we're not talking about toxic positivity. We're not saying like you have to ignore everything. That's why we're saying you have to process it and get over it. We're talking about that not camping out where, you know, with that, those negative emotions, like you feel them, you process them, and then we can move on. Because also I want to point out, and most of you who followed me on my podcast know this, I have not lived like the idyllic life. I'm not somebody sitting here who had a silver spoon in my mouth and all of these awesome things happened my whole life to tell you that, oh, do this, because I've never experienced that. I've experienced a lot of loss, a lot of things. We're coming from a place of telling you that you can do this. Like you can move through this. You don't have to be miserable your whole life. Just because bad things happen to you doesn't mean that has to become your identity. You can pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and we can move forward after you've processed the things that happened to you. And I used to be the type of person, I don't know about you, but if something would happen to me, I would be mad about it for days. I wasted so much of my time being miserable because I was making myself miserable by focusing on that bad thing that happened. And now I have an immediate thing that comes to me that's like, is this going to matter in 5 minutes, 5 days, 5 years, 5 months, you know, then let it go, you know, let it go.
That's amazing. That's really good retraining that you've done for yourself. I was actually doing another interview, and somebody mentioned to me when I started talking about, you know, looking for the good in life, because I agree with you. The idea of toxic positivity, I have my own feelings on that, because I feel like sometimes when we don't understand what the work is, then we start to label it something else. So I feel a little funny about the word toxic positivity, but I do know it exists. And what I want to say is that when I spoke to this other person about it, she gave this really great example about like Easter egg hunting. And so I want to take from that, but then add on my own. So I want you to imagine, like, let's say a child, for example, and you say to a child, you know, go out in the backyard and go like Easter egg hunting or whatever. It doesn't have to be related to any religious holiday, but, you know, just go hunting for some treasures in the grass. And I want you to imagine that it's like a really like kind of ugly backyard. It's just like filled with weeds and twigs and like stuff's everywhere. But you have given the child a directive, like there's treats out there. Like there is candy, there is toys, there might be money. That kid is not analyzing the weeds. They're not like, well, somebody needs to clean up this yard. That child is laser focused on where are these eggs? Where are these treasures? And that's what they're going to come back with, literally a bucket or basket filled with treasures, because that's what they sought out to find. So what I'm saying is that, yes, life sometimes is like a backyard full of weeds. It can be. And then some of us have more weeds than others. Some of us have logs. I mean, lightning bolts have hit the trees, honey. They are down. There's still a small fire in the corner. Like this is some of us how we've lived. My point is that when you go out into the quote unquote backyard of your life, it's really going to be dependent upon what you're searching for is what you're going to come back with. So if you step out into that backyard and you're just observing that went wrong and that went wrong and look at these weeds and this is horrible and that happened and I'm just being honest, you can be honest. But the child is also being honest and saying there are treasures in here. I'm also being honest that there are treasures and I'm going to dig for these. And you as an adult, as a teen, a preteen, an older person, whoever you are listening, we are able to make that distinction. And that's when I say, this is not about fake positive. I'm not telling you to go out in the backyard, stare up in the sky and start screaming, wow, I have eggs, I have treasures, and there's literally nothing in your hands. No, 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 no. To me, that's what toxic positivity is. You're just making stuff up, staring at nothing. I mean, dig in the grass, honey. I mean, get on your hands and knees and find those treasures and bring them back. And so at the end of your day, when someone says, well, what kind of day did you have? You say, I had a day filled with treasures, even though you were digging through the weeds, even though you were out there with all of that ember and all the stuff in the backyard, you came back as a quote unquote winner, not because of luck, not because of whatever, but because you actually chose to. And that action of looking for the good and then being excited. I brought up a child because a child would be just bouncing off the walls with that emotion of excitement, being really present. That emotion of excitement and that focus on good is literally the quintessential cornerstones of raising your vibration, which is what we're talking about.
And to me, we want to connect to that inner child, because that childlike curiosity and excitement, like that's really what you want to connect to, those feelings of that when you want to raise your vibration. But another thing I wanted to point out was when you look at people throughout history who were successful, many of them had a lot of obstacles, but you look at what's the difference between this person and that person. And the difference is always that that person chose not to let the obstacles stop them, but chose to see them as opportunities for growth and looked for the positives in those opportunities. And I think that that's really important to note, because people will say like, well, they were just born with all these blessings. Well, they were just this or that. No, there are people who literally had to climb up through, like the lotus flower. It climbs up through the mud and the muck and the mire to get to bloom. And that is why it's so important to understand that anybody can do this.
100%. And then mindset is just such a huge part of it. As you said, what are you choosing? And so I've actually given myself this little, I won't say mantra because it kind of changes every time, but I've said to myself, whatever the obstacle that comes in my way, then that's the person I become. And so what I say to myself is, okay, is that a hurdle? Well, then I am a hurdle jumper. Like I'm on the track and field. Let's go, baby. We're training and we're jumping hurdles today. Is that a mountain? Okay, perfect. I am a mountain climber. I'm going to get to the top of Everest in the next couple of days or weeks, and I'm climbing this baby. Like, let me get the tools that I need. So I really shift my mindset to say that I am somebody who can overcome this obstacle, because our language, now back to the other part of my skills, the neuro-linguistic programming piece, that language that we use when we're describing things, it really helps to set us up for failure or success. Exactly like you just said. Am I overcoming this obstacle and like feeling stronger and more empowered than ever, or am I going to get crushed by it? And so I've used the language, and I encourage all of you too, to use the language that empowers you. Say, wow, this is like a brick wall that just came in front of me. Okay, well, guess what you are today, baby? You are a brick wall scaler. Like we are scaling the wall, right? Like, and it's a rock wall, then you're a rock climber. Like really start to find within you the embodiment of the person that can overcome. We're not asking you to deny that obstacles appear. I'm just telling you that there's a mindset of those who overcome the obstacles and those who are succumbed by that obstacle. So that vibrational journey is really you being able to maintain eyes on the target and maintain that countenance of like, I'm tuning to this is the station I want. And I'm going to turn. It's a little fuzzy there. I think I heard a little music there. Is it coming in the background there? And you're just turning that knob, if you will, and tuning your emotions into that direction that you want to go. So let's take it out of the radio example and make it even more tangible, more concrete. If there is something that you are wanting to accomplish in your life, the believing before you see, which is the way we're helping everyone to understand that it really works now, really requires you to embody what that thing would feel like, what it would be like. What is it that you want about it? It's about elevating the desire in a way that says, this is how I would love and enjoy it. This is how it feels when I have it. So you're almost, I call it, or I've heard it called behaving as if. You're in the state where, all right, I want to make money. Okay. So what would it be like if you've made money? How would you sound? How would you feel? Become the embodiment of it. That's tuning to the station of it, right? You got to tune first, then the music plays. So you now, how do you stand, how you're going to stand, breathe, how you're going to breathe, think how you're going to think, smile, how you're going to smile, celebrate, how you're going to celebrate, feel the feelings as if you'd already attracted that money. When you do this, now let's get a little into the quantum. I probably quote Dr. Joe Dispenza more than any human should quote another human, but but I really love his work. So this is where you get into the quantum and you say, okay, now that I've elevated these emotions and I have this vision of what it would be like to have it now, I'm in the body of having it now. Oh my gosh, this feels amazing. I feel so free. Start to play with what words come to mind. What is that emotion in your heart of like, oh, yes, like all those bills are paid. This feels so good. Oh my gosh, I'm going to donate this much here and there. And you're just basking in it, opening the imagination, unleashing. And what happens in that process is actually biochemical. You are now sending signals through your body that match that actual event happening. Now let's take it more vibrational. Because you've sent the signals through your body, you now emit a signal in the field on the outside of the body. This is called the electromagnetic field. You are now expanding that field, and it can expand up to 9 meters wide, according to Dr. Joe's research. And now that field is very clearly and measurably your vibrational field. And the wider it is, and the more clearly your eyes are on the prize and your emotion is elevated, you are now literally in one of the highest vibrational, measurable, quantifiable, scientifically sound, highest vibrational places you can be to actually be in contact with the vibration of the thing it is you want to receive. So this is the work, is feeling it ahead of time, being grateful ahead of time, enjoying it ahead of time. And for those of you who are like, I don't know about this. It's like a lot of imagination going on here. Here's what I tell people. Imagine you got in your time machine, you went to the future, and you really stepped into your future body. Like you went to your time machine. Like I'm not pretending, I'm not imagining. Let's just actually, I'm in my time machine. Oh, I'm in 5 years from now. Oh my gosh. Oh, excuse me. No, can't talk to me, honey. I am rich. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. But don't be a jerk about it. But you know what I mean? Like just really step into it. And when you do that, you are creating real changes in this physical instrument called the body. You have tuned to a state where you are literally communicating on a vibrational level with all higher vibrational things and items that you want that match the vision you're holding in your mind. And your heart acts as a magnet and will draw it right to you. Your brain has the eye on the target and your heart will pull it in. So you need the feelings because that's the center of pulling those experiences into you. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And I want to point out, if any of you are out there listening, and as you're listening to this stuff, there's resistance when you're hearing it, like, oh, that can't work for blah, blah. I want you to pay attention to that because that's one of the things we have to kind of break down is that wall of resistance. And it's understandable why it's there because we just talked about the science of the human brain focusing on the negative, and we're actually rewiring the brain. We are creating new neural pathways in the brain when we do this work.
Yes.
And that is going to require that. But it's important to understand, what are your resistances? Why do you think that this can't work? Or why do you think that this, what's the resistance? I think it's important to understand that too, and to pay attention to that, because that's one of the things you kind of have to tackle is, why am I resisting this? And a lot of times I think it's fear and it's the unknown, and you can work on that too, but you have to understand where that resistance is coming from. And for me, when I first started doing this kind of work, the resistance was growing up in a single mom household. Everything was expensive, right? Everything was stressful. Everything was a lot of work. All of those subconscious programming that was there without me realizing it, just because it was what I had heard my whole life growing up. So one of the things I had to do before I actually started working on that, what I think is still part of the work of shifting your vibration, is addressing those particular things that came up, like you have to work hard for your money. Money's hard to come by. Like all of those things that I heard growing up, I had to prove to myself that wasn't true. And one of the ways we do that is just by looking around at the universe. How abundant is the universe? Look at nature. All you have to do is look at nature for that. I just planted some tomato plants this year, and I had a ton of tomatoes that are already starting to be ripe. You started with nothing, and then all of a sudden now you have all of this. That didn't happen out of nothing, right? The universe is abundant, and we just have to be willing to see that with our own eyes. But also going back to that, believing before we physically see something sometimes too.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that when we have that programming from childhood, from experiences, from anything that has planted that in you, I think it's so important to counteract that programming by allowing yourself to see proof, like you said, of the opposite, of something that's more, that serves you better and that is more truthful than what you may have grown up with. So if you are someone who's like, I just have a higher burden of truth here, I can't get through allow yourself to listen to podcasts just like what Melissa's providing for you today, so that you can hear more people and experts and research and sources. Go on YouTube, read more books, watch documentaries, do the things that kind of allow you to overwrite the old programming. Of course, a really great way to do that is have coaching. I work as a coach. There's many coaches that can help coach you through kind of wiping the slate clean, if you will. It's not quite like Men in Black. I'm not going to zap your brain or anything like that, but it's close. It's close. It's as close as we might get for a little while here. But the idea here is just to actually I had a keynote the other day in DC, and I started off with Bruce Lee's quote where he says, and I've been just abusing this quote at this point because I love it so much. And he says, I fear not the man who does 10,000 things once. I fear instead the man who does one thing 10,000 times, because in that repetition of that one thing over and over, you become an expert. We are firing and wiring neurological connections. You are creating habits and routines and becoming the essence of that which you are repeating over and over and over. So to the degree that we heard, money doesn't grow on trees and blah, 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 and all the limiting mindset stuff we may have heard all throughout those formative years, that is to the degree that we want those 10,000 times of practice in the opposite direction. I want 10,000 times for someone to show me, prove to me, talk to me, discuss, elevate my mind on abundance, 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 abundance. I want 10,000 exposures, because we'll spend our whole childhood, 0 to 18 or whatever age you're exposed to certain things, hearing the same thing over for 18 years, almost day in and day out. And then we want to listen to one segment of a podcast or read one book and be like,
I got it now. I'm good.
I don't know. I think I got it. But, now I realize it didn't work. This stuff must not be true. It is true, but you've only had one exposure versus 18 years times 365 days. I mean,
yeah, you're trying to reprogram that. Exactly. And it's a continuous practice. So I would love now if we could get into the tools that people can use. What can people do to really, so let's say they're hoping to manifest something, they want to raise that vibration. Or another way that I like to use the raising the vibration is, let's say they've had just a crap day. And they're just in that, you get in those funky moods sometimes and you're like, I really want to get out of this. what are some ways that we can work on raising that vibration?
I'm going to give you another visual that I think helps us to really kind of drive ourselves there. That's kind of the goal. So it feels really real. So we know how the GPS works. And in order to use a GPS to get yourself from here to there, you have to put a destination in. So if this is the GPS and I write in here, I'm here and I don't like being here, the GPS has no clue where I'm supposed to go from there. And this is what we do now. Our GPS is kind of the mind, right? The mind, where do I want to think? Where do I want to feel? Maybe a combo of heart and mind. This is my GPS. And in there, I'm like, this is a really bad day. The GPS is waiting for instructions. Well, where do you want the day to go? How do you want to feel? I feel terrible. GPS is still waiting for instructions. So do you want to feel excited, happy, peaceful? You want to feel relaxed? You want to feel free? Like, I don't know. Where do you want? I am being real. And I feel miserable and I'm being honest and I'm not going to be a Pollyanna and pretend I'm not miserable. Okay, cool. GPS is just sitting there like, sure, whenever you want to program a destination, let me know. However, I can only be where you told me we are. And you've told me we're miserable and you told me we're stuck and you've told me that you're being honest. So here we are. And you move nowhere. So emotionally, I need you to recognize, and these are the steps I want you to take, that your mind and heart are like GPSs and they're waiting for you to give them instructions. So as you sit there in a bad day, or as you're desiring more freedom or love or whatever it is you want in your life, you've got to set the GPS. You have to intentionally say, I feel horrible right now, and I really want to feel ease. And this is what ease would feel like. So you're almost, as you're typing, quote unquote, into that GPS, you're like, I'd love to feel ease. And the GPS is like, so where's ease? Like what state, what country, what city, what's the address here? And then now you elevate that heart emotion and you just let yourself feel for a second. I wish I could feel like, okay, watch this GPS. And you literally sit in that feeling. Just imagine that you just got the feeling. Understanding you're doing this to program your brain and your heart to say, this is where I'd like to go. I need to give my brain and heart a sample of where it is I'm headed so it can create that feedback loop and give it back to me. So it can be the GPS and take me there. And the emotions really are the gas pedal. This is where it's going to actually take off and get you where you want to go. So as you're sitting there in a bad day, you start to identify, I would love the feeling of peace, ease, joy, and you try to feel each one of them. Or maybe there's just one and try to magnify that one. A very specific thing I do in my journal, when the minute I open my eyes, I open my journal and I write down all of the desired emotions and states I would like to feel. And sometimes you're feeling close to it. So you're like, I love when I feel. And then other days you're like, I don't feel close to this at all. So then I write, I love the thought of feeling. I love the thought of feeling free. I love the thought of feeling at ease. I love the thought of feeling, whimsical and like a fairy and whatever I want to write. It's my journal. I write what I want, right? But so you can do the same thing. And literally, whether you're writing or thinking it, and I start to set that GPS. And what happens is with each word I write, whether I repeat words or write fresh words, I literally allow myself to tap into, this is what that would feel like. Oh, this is what that would feel like. Oh, that's what that would feel like. And that's what that would feel like. And here's what happens. I have a visual target because I know the emotion I'm setting my eyes on. I have an emotional target because I've now elevated my emotion. Now my brain starts to record. Oh, Simone just felt happy for a second. Simone just felt free for a second. My brain doesn't know the difference between me actually feeling the emotion because something external happened or me feeling it because I just generated it on the inside on my own. All my brain and body knows is thought, good thought, good feeling. Ding, ding, ding. We got a match. Write it down. She just had a great moment. Good, ding, ding, another great thought, another great feeling, write it down. She had another great moment, ding, ding. And I'm doing this and I write at least 100. Every time I sit to my journal, I write 100 emotions and feelings. And I could say rich. It doesn't have to be a feeling per se, but I write any state that would make me feel amazing. By the time I'm done that, my brain is like, girl, we just had a really good 10 minutes. I'm like, I know, life is amazing. And now that vibration is out there. And I have now picked up a lot of good eggs and I'm bringing back a basket full of goodies and treasures. And that's a really practical way for you to do it. Be very aware of what you're thinking. Be aware of what you want. You can jot it down. You can do it in your mind. You can stare in the mirror and do it. You can breathe through it. You can focus in on your heart and just let yourself feel good. You can focus on what it is you want. It's really a matter of choosing. Not just saying today was a bad day. Listen, bad days will come and find you. Like they don't need an invitation. They don't wait for the Evite to come through. They're just like, It's terrible, God. I'm not here for you. Right. So you got to be like, excuse me, I'm sorry, you're not invited. And you have to go out and write invitations for all the positive feelings because they're a little bit more like laid back. They're just like, I'm not coming unless you invite me. And I'm like, love, happiness, joy, fun, freedom. Let's go. You're invited.
All those emotions must be projectors because they have to be waiting. They have to wait for the invite to
You
come.
have to wait for the invite. I mean, maybe it's a good way to think of that. So that's the real intention, is that this is a deliberate life experience. So when you wake up and you're like, oh, there we go, I feel like crap. That's not the end of it. That's the beginning of it. That's your indication to say, oh, my radio's on static. Let me tune it. And your now job is to get into the position of tuning it and writing what you want on that GPS and being as clear with that in physical instruction as you can, and watch that feedback loop, watch the brain training happen. And it works. And it works. And people say to me, are you really that happy? How can anyone be that happy? I'm like, I literally trained to get happy. It's like asking someone like, can you really lift 500 pounds? How can you lift? Because they went to the gym and they trained. And so like, don't be mad someone can run fast or pick up a really heavy weight or draw or write whatever it is their skill is that you've practiced. I've taken Bruce Lee's quote to heart, and I'm like, well, to the degree I want to be happy, I want to practice that 10,000 times per day, per week, per minute, whatever it is that I can manage. That's what I want. And I'm going to reach into the belly of life, and I'm going to just pull it out for myself. And I'm going to do it every day, every single minute of every day.
I love that. And as you were sitting there explaining that, it was so funny because the movie Inside Out popped into my head. And, they're pulling those emotions, and they're trying like in the original one, I don't even remember what her name was, the emotion, but it was a negative emotion. And they're like, no, no, stay away. But that's literally what you're doing, is you're trying to reprogram those emotions so that when the bad things happen, yes, of course you go, oh, that sucked. Maybe you scream and you have your moment, and then you go, okay, but that's not going to be my day. That's not going to define me. Okay. A bad thing happens. So you know what? I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go listen to some good music. I'm going to have a cup of coffee. I'm going to eat something. I'm going to do something else and recenter myself and get those emotions back in alignment again.
100% live on purpose. Like, you deserve that. And I know there also is that level of, well, do I really deserve it? And I think, as Melissa was kind of saying earlier on, it's when you kind of expand, or at least this is what I pulled from something you were saying earlier, when you expand yourself to recognize that you are of something so much greater. We don't have to worry with those tiny little details like, am I, Simone, in this body, am I good enough? It's like, wait a second, I'm of the universe. So like, clearly some part of me is good enough, right? So even start there, some part of me is good enough, right? Start in a very loose acceptance. And then from there, be deliberate about your life. And it's so interesting when you just gave that example, it made me think of another visual. You guys bear with me, okay? Because NLP, our goal is to create these new imageries in your mind.
As a teacher, I love that because I think it makes it makes connections for people that they wouldn't normally have.
Thank you. Thank you for appreciating that, because sometimes words just go in and literally go out because they didn't stop to make a picture. So my brain's like, what? But movies, we remember because there's a picture, right? So it brought this picture to mind of, imagine that you're out fishing and you're like, you're fishing for a particular fish or something you want, whatever, your big bass fishing or whatever, I don't know. And you go out there and like you pull in a boot. You don't just say, well, I guess we're eating a boot tonight. This is what I caught. This is just life. I just have to deal with it. There's nothing I can do. You pull in the boot, you like start salt peppering and grilling it up. No, you're like, did not want a boot, toss the boot back, and you throw your line back in and try to get another fish. And you will do that a few hundred times if you need to, until you get back at least one tiny little guppy something. You got to pull in the line, right? The same thing for us with life. When we wake up, sometimes it's like the first thing we pull in seems like it was a boot or a tire or seaweed or something we don't want. We need to stop being just like, well, that's just my life.
That's what the universe gave me. So
yeah.
Like, what?
No, I am screaming. No, this is where you have control and you say, you know what? Did I want to pull in a boot? No. Did something maybe go wrong at some kind of alignment? Maybe. Who cares? Here's what I know now. I got to throw this boot back. because that's not what I want for my day. I need something else. And for those who don't eat fish, I apologize. We just use any example that you want that's more comfortable. But the idea is, you're fishing for something in life that you really want. And when you pull in something that's not what you want, we have to stop quitting on ourselves, and we have to stop just settling for whatever popped out of the water or popped in our laps, and be a little bit more deliberate about where are we throwing our line? What are we looking for? What are we setting in the GPS? What are we tuning our tuner to? Are we being consistent? Because I can't be, on whatever station looking for one song, knowing goodness gracious, it's never going to play on that station. It's not what the station plays, and then be upset with life, and then be upset with someone who did tune.
You brought up something so important, because so this victim mindset of like, oh, this happened and I don't have any control over it. I mean, yes, bad things happen to us. Of course, that's part of life. Yeah. But this, oh, well, I just can't do anything. I'm just going to sit here and be miserable. Like, no. You have a choice. You have a choice in how you react to everything. And that's where the power is. That's where your true inner power lies, is in how you react to those situations.
Yes. And a big part of the NLP piece to bring in here is that when those bad things do happen to us, we tend to milk them. And part of my advice to people is, let's start milking the good times, even if just equally, even at first, if it's just equal to how much we milk the bad times, let's start with equally milking the good, because something good will happen and you'll talk to someone and you're like, so how'd that go? And they're like, oh, it's fine. It was great. They're like, oh, okay. Any specifics? They're like, no, it was just really good. You're like, okay. And then something bad happens. You're like, well, how'd that go? And they're like, oh my gosh, it was 2:32 p.m. Wednesday. I was wearing a purple shirt and blue jeans. You're like, oh my gosh, like you've got details, because we're running that back in our mind as a movie. And we are running that movie and we're looping it and we're looping it and we're looping it and we're looping it. So the synapses and the connections in our brain really strong, really sharp. Imagine that it's like some brand new, like 5K 3D movie, whatever, in your brain. It is sharp and it is right there. So all of your actions pass through that movie before you do anything else. And it's a negative movie. It's a movie of trauma, of pain, of hurt. And I'm not telling you to pretend it didn't happen. I'm just asking you to also acknowledge when the good things happen, so those movies can play equally big in your mind. So when that good thing happens and you get a raise, we need to get out of this mindset that I can't be proud that I got a raise, or I can't be proud I got a new job. So like, only say it, I got a raise. I'm modest. That's it. Like, no, I worked hard and the boss walked in and I remember the look on his face and he smiled at me. And then I was feeling so proud. No, I was actually nervous at first, and, milk it. And then the moment he said the number, I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I was paying all my bills. Like, milk that moment of goodness instead of these one-line good things, these one-liners of good things in our lives, and these absolute novels, Encyclopedia Britannica, sorry, just gave away my age, of trauma and pain in our lives, because that's also what throws us off center, because of course my brain is going to pull on whatever I've programmed more intensely in my mind. So there are a lot of little ways that we can get ourselves to this state of understanding I am divinely worthy. There's something special about me. Something about the universe is in me. Somehow this magic happened and I'm here. So let's start there if you can't get any deeper. And from there you say, with that, I obviously can tune into that thing that brought me here, this universal piece. Let me try to tune in. Well, I can't tune in if I'm thinking in my GPS, I'm here. I got to put some destination in. So let me at least be clear about where I want to go. And I can write it. I can sing it in a song. I can sing it in the shower. I can say it in affirmation. I can talk to myself in the mirror. I'm just going to set this destination and just feel good that I'm part of something way bigger, and try to elevate those emotions and feel good as much as I can, allowing myself to deal with negative emotion when it happens and then leave it there. And really milk the moments of good times to keep the vibrations high, so that I can really watch as the universe sends things into my life. And it's effortless. It's usually really effortless.
Yeah, write it down. I always say, like, look for the evidence in your life, because look at your life 6 months ago. What do you have in here now that you didn't have then that you're so grateful for? Because there's the proof that the universe is working for you and things are working out on your behalf.
That is delicious. I love that. Oh my gosh. Think about what you had 6 months ago, or that you were asking for and you have right now. We are often living and walking in our dreams. Like, we're walking in answered prayers sometimes and have no clue, or like just completely like aloof to it, because so much is going on in the world. I would definitely love to leave you guys with like a a kind of a last word of advice. I'm not sure if we're there yet, but I have it in my head. So I skipped ahead. Go ahead, Melissa. I'm sorry. I was like, I wanted.
No, yes, no, I was about to wrap it up. So your last piece of advice for them is what?
Is there is a difference between trying to manifest something versus really allowing yourself to feel good. The vibration of manifestation is a good, elevated feeling somewhere around love, somewhere around appreciation, somewhere around contentment, somewhere around joy, peace, acceptance, release. These are the types of emotions that allow our manifestations to come in. And I know one of the early mistakes I made was that I was trying to manifest something. And when I did that, it would bring up angst for me. Now, if it's working for you, there's not a one size fits all. So keep doing what you're doing if it's working for you. But I would be so hung up on like the thing, like, I don't know, a
And the
car,
lack of it,
a house.
probably like it's not here yet. And why is it?
Right. And that's what happens when you look for the thing as your only goal, because you do need to have something in sights that you're interested in. But when I had the thing as my primary goal, then I became aware that the thing wasn't there. But and this is good. Thank you for helping to expand me to this, Melissa. But when you're focused on the feeling of feeling good, the feeling of feeling good is here now. And in that present nowness, I can't look around and be like, oh, I don't feel good anymore. Like, no, I still really feel good. I feel really good. I still feel good. Thinking about this, I feel amazing. And that good feeling lasts. And that is what we call instant manifestation. Because the feeling that that thing will give me when it comes, that feeling is here now, which means that I'm on the vibrational trajectory to pull it right in because I'm on the same vibe as the thing. So that's a little trick I would give you is focus on feeling good, on elevating that emotion and enjoying how good that feels. Like, oh my gosh, I feel so good. I haven't felt this good in years. It feels so good.
That
And it's
just gives me
happening now.
chills when you
Yeah.
saying that. It's true. And so that's the alignment. So I want to leave them with something too is, sometimes you're just not feeling it, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
just not feeling it. Create a list of things that brings you that good feeling that you can go to when you're not feeling it. When you're like, when people say you have to fake it to make it, some people are like, I hate that and I don't want that. You're creating the realness.
That's it.
So when you feel like, I can't even, because we've all had those days.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, after you get done listening to this podcast, make a list of things that you can do that bring you those good feelings. So maybe it's watching old home videos of your children and it brings you joy because you remember those good times. Maybe there's this song that every time you listen to it, for me, there's a song called Precious Love that every time I listen to it, I have to start singing. So is there a song that makes you feel that way? Going for a walk outside in nature, does that make you feel that way because you get those natural endorphins? What is it? Create a list. Is it a guided meditation? Is it EFT tapping? What is it? Make a whole list of things you can go to. And when you're just not feeling it that day, get out that list and pick something and go do it.
Actually, I'm going to give you guys a really quick free gift. I have an academy online, and in the library, there is instruction for making a self-esteem soothing center. And it echoes exactly what Melissa's saying, but of course, yours will be more robust. Everything won't be in the center or in the basket that you make, but the basket can serve as a little reminder or a little area in your house or a bookshelf where your favorite books are, your videos are, you're something that smells good. Like you said, a little note that reminds you go take a walk, a little list of options, like Melissa just said. Oh, so good. So if you want a little guidance in making a self-esteem soothing center, you can definitely go watch that free video in my free library in the academy, which hopefully Melissa can.
Yeah, we'll put the link in the show notes so you can get to it easily.
Good.
Awesome. Okay, so I wanted to, before we ended today, pull a few cards for our listeners. So I pulled the Soul Truth deck, which is by Brianne Hubby, and I don't know if you can see that there, but I love this deck because it not only gives you messages, but also tools for, how we can be more in alignment. So I'm going to pull a few cards today and see what wants to come out for our listeners. Okay. So we have the first card coming out are what expectations do I have that are impossible to meet? The expectations we have are mainly delusional and impossible to meet. When we experience disappointment with ourselves, or with a relationship when they are not met, it's time to dissolve your expectations and replace them with gratitude. So today's soul action with this card is be grateful. You are being summoned to move to peace. Peace is home for our soul, and it is accompanied by trust. It comes when you surrender and focus only on what you can control. If you expect nothing and are grateful for everything, you'll experience extreme fulfillment. So I think to me, this is more about just not placing unrealistic expectations on others around you. And instead, focusing on what you can control, which is you. Right? We can't control other people, and we're not supposed to. So,
100%.
And then you have, when was the last time I couldn't stop laughing or smiling? Go back to a moment when you laughed so hard you almost peed your pants, or did it? Feel the laughter ground your body, your cheeks hurting and eyes watering. Maybe there was even a snort or two. Laughter is healing. It reminds us to take life less seriously and find joy in the littlest things. Note to self, laugh more often. And the action that goes with the card is today, make somebody laugh.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is the greatest piece of advice, is not to take yourself too seriously.
100%.
Okay. Well, I also wanted to pull a couple of cards from the Super Attractor deck, and this is by Gabrielle Bernstein. So we're going to see. All right. So the first card that came out is, when I live and act from a place of spiritual alignment, I can trust that everything is working out for me, even if I don't know when or how it will happen. So this is calling for trust, which means we don't do the worry and the whatever and the thing, right? And then waiting more for others puts me into an energy of, no, wanting more for others. I'm sorry. I was like, that didn't make sense. Wanting more for others puts me into an energy of abundance. So when you see those people around you who have all the things and you're like, oh, it isn't fair, and you want to go to that place, instead say, I'm so happy for them, because if they have all of this abundance, that means it's also possible for me. And if that's happening around me, that means it's possible because it is around me. So use that as an example of, yes, I'm happy for them because that's going to be me. That's also me.
And think of how close that is to you. If you're actually experiencing it close to you, that means you're pretty close to that vibration. So you don't want to turn off your link by being upset. You want to sink into the first card, which is gratitude, and say, I'm so thankful that I got this reminder that this exists, and this is such a close possibility and so close proximity to me. And it really is something that I could be experiencing very soon. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Thank you so much for being here with us today again. This again was another really fun, great, informative, awesome conversation. And I really, really, truly appreciate you being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I feel it with my whole heart. I hope that everyone received, as we spoke to each other together, from our hearts, and empowering all of you. And every single tool we shared here today is something you can pick up and use immediately and get into the state of high vibration right this red hot second. So enjoy it. And we will see you in this most abundant experience. Again, thank you. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Yes. And thank you all for being here with us. I will have the link for Dr. Simone Alicia in the show notes. So you can go directly there to get the free tool that you were talking about earlier. And also, I want to thank you for being with us here today. If you would like to work with me, you can go to my website, melissaoatman.com. Please like this podcast, subscribe, leave a positive review from wherever you're listening. And of course, the greatest compliment you can pay to me is to share this podcast with anyone you think might benefit. I just released Beautiful Mourning, A Guide to Life After Loss. If you are looking for help getting through your grief journey, or you know someone who is, you can pick that up on Amazon. The link is in the show notes. I hope you guys have an amazing week. I am sending you so much love and light. Go out there and find those Easter eggs, those things to be grateful for, because they are there. Even in a world full of weeds, you can find your own magical surprises. Have a beautiful week, guys, and I will talk to you soon.